this is gonna be good.
Oh,
I love this song.
you know one thing about this song, though?
Yeah.
Is we got the rights to use this thing a long time ago.
Yeah.
Or when you bought the rights to use a song,
Yeah.
you got this like token.
Yeah.
Every week, YouTube sends me a message saying like, your video can't be monetized, and most of the time it's because of this song. And then I have to like send the email every week of us having bought this song from the songwriter. But then we made enough jokes about getting to the Nephilim podcast that it was demonetized for conspiracy thinking. So this week I'm not even gonna send the email.
OMG. Dude, whenever I upload my sermon or my service to YouTube, it always gets flagged, but it's usually for worship music.
Yeah.
And I'm not monetizing it anyway, so.
All right. There we go. Now I'm trying to get all my things nice and organized. Oh. There we go. People in the chat already. All right. What is up, theology nerds?
I'm already laughing.
This is Tripp. And today,
oh no,
on the podcast, are we going to have some fun? Now, you know we have long intros, but let me just go ahead and give you a teaser, Bo, of what's going to happen.
Are we monetizing the angelic rebellion?
Actually, here's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I'm going to text you.
Okay.
What I thought about doing cold open, but it'd be way more funny if you do it in movie trailer voice.
All right.
Okay.
In a world.
Yeah, like that.
All right.
That. Did you get my text?
Hold on. Let me.
Yeah, I'm not joking. I was going to do this.
Okay.
And then I was like, no. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to make you really big on the screen and everything. All right. Bo's big.
Oh my Lanta. You ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. The same 4 verses in Genesis that inspired a Dead Sea Scroll, a church father debate, and a UN outpost on Mount Hermon are now being cited to explain CRISPR, the Antichrist, and the Merovingian bloodline. How did we get here? We got it all, baby. Ooh, yeah. Stuck in a little conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Look, I'm just glad Lori's in the chat. She's been the most persistent questioner as to whether or not this is even a topic.
Whether we should even do it.
Well, see, Ben's already like saying aliens, and see, that's only one.
It's better than aliens.
It's all there are 3 large trajectories of Nephilim conspiracies after mistakenly clicking on one video this week. Then it got in my algorithm, and then Bo, I discovered that one of my homeboys at the cigar lounge is a Michael Heiser, Nephilim champ. And I took the opportunity to do some research from a true believer this week. And boy.
A little qualitative research, like an ethnography or a case study.
Yeah. I was like, and I asked suspicious questions and things and was like, is it cool if I tell this story on the internet? And
you got permission.
He's like, yeah. Here's what he said, Bo. Don't use my name. He is employed by the city, but maybe some of those people that you've corrupted away from biblical Christianity would hear it and go look it up on the internet and be compelled. So my personal research assistant this week is really here for Ben Simmons in the comments. Like, he didn't know the Nephilim was a thing. I didn't until people started asking me about it. And now he can't escape it.
Yeah.
And here we are, you know,
it is such a sub-strain within certain kinds of Christianity that if you're part of a major stream of Christianity, right, like standard Catholicism, any kind of Protestantism, but it's specifically within a unique branch of fundamentalism, and also in a charismatic branch of Christianity, that you will find this theory of the Nephilim taken very seriously as an explanatory of why the world is the way it is.
Dude, when we talk about explanatory theories, you want to know, Bo, what it felt like talking to this guy?
What did it feel like?
Like, in the way he hooked everything together. I mean, we're talking like aliens, angels, demons, giants, AI, CRISPR, the UN.
I don't know what CRISPR is.
Like a gene editor, gene editing, gene editing, where you go in and edit a particular part of the gene.
Oh man, that makes a lot of sense. Dude, we're going to get into some of the craziest. Like, if you thought racism and eschatology had nothing in common, you're in the right place today.
Well, I'm a noob at this, except that I did spend way too much time in the last few days getting into it after having a crash course. But you know how, like, when we were at Claremont, there was a group of people that were very, very confident of a particular conspiracy, and if you talk to them about it, they would talk as long as possible and have an answer for every question, and then the energy would just get escalated, and then at some point you just have to realize that, like, resistance is futile. Change the subject. That was my experience in Cigar Lounge. It was 1.5 cigars worth of Enoch. And
but you stuck with it though.
No, because I was suffering on behalf of Lori here, she was smart enough, like me, to avoid it for most of our lives.
Okay.
Now it's on the agenda because enough people message saying, y'all got a TNT about some Nephilim.
Yeah. We'll do it.
I got to do my due diligence. Yeah. I got a servant's heart, Bo.
Man, this is going to be one of the most cringeworthy things we ever do. This is going to be hilarious. By the way, Ben, in the comment section, has tapped into something important that we should probably name right off the bat, which is, he says he's been out of touch with this world for 20 years. He can't wait to find out the new developments. And I actually said nearly the same thing to Tripp before we started. I said, my stories about this end about 15 years ago. I can't wait to find out about the more contemporary applications of it.
Do you want to take a bet on whether the Epstein conspiracy gets woven into this?
Oh, you're kidding me. Oh man.
Teasers.
Okay. Wow. Hey, but the one thing I know is why we're at war in Iran.
You do?
Yeah.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
Is it?
No, it ties in with this.
Okay. Well, we're already getting demonetized, so I could tell you Tripp's conspiracy. Because
so YouTube, if you put out conspiracy theories, you can't monetize the stream?
They transcribe it automatically, and then we'll cut stuff. 1 week they demonetized us for they were like, you're talking about anti-American things. And I realized that it was just because we talked about Marx. And I was like, but we talked about Marx. He's got books in like the great books of Western civilization list, which I think y'all want to protect. Like, don't you need to know who he is so you can tell everyone how wrong he is? And I just thought we were like helping the train of freedom and liberty, And but yeah, whatever. Also, they're like, if you edited your YouTube videos after you do them live, then you could increase your views. And I said,
that sounds like
I believe in authenticity.
that sounds like a lot of work, to be honest.
Yeah.
Can you imagine editing like an hour and a half long video? How long? I mean, that's a significant investment of time.
Well, the technology now actually makes it not that hard. The hard part is, Bo, here's the way I put it. The TNT podcast is a stream of consciousness where only half of it is even being put on the screen, because you also have our ongoing relationship in general that will lead us to make detours to amuse the other person, that only people that are in the joke are the ones that come all the time. And then we're engaging a chat that also is a character in it. So like, how would you decide if you start editing things?
Right. Because let's say you edited something at minute 8 and then it shows up again in the chat at minute 60, but there's no referent, right?
Exactly.
People, they wouldn't know. They're like, why is this coming up now?
But before we do that, Bo.
Yeah.
We just announced everyone that's coming to Theology Beer Camp this
year. What a
well, actually,
lineup.
We haven't announced them all because there's a few that there's exciting things still in the works. But yeah, we did do that. And so now you have to start thinking. This is gonna, you're gonna have to start thinking about what all you want to do at camp, like what kind of session. And for those of you who don't know, Theology Beer Camp, 8th to 10th of October in Kansas City. You should go get your tickets before the end of the month when the price goes up. And but this year, here are a bunch of the speakers coming. We got Cornel West, Ilya Dilio, Gary Dorian, Bill Leonard, Robert Jones, Jamar Tisby, Kristen Dumais, Diana Butler Bass. We got all the Bible divas, and
including my friend Cynthia Schaefer Elliott.
I know. So I want it. This is what I'm saying. Is in the session you're in charge of, you should come up with something cool. Because you know how like friend energy makes podcasts even more exciting.
It does.
So I think you should work backwards from a topic where you know that she'll participate, and then you can think about what other people would fit in to doing something where you get friend energy. So how did y'all meet?
We went to the same college in Redding, California, and I ended up becoming best friends with the guy who became her husband, and so we've had a lifelong friendship, and we've gone out of our way not only to see each other every year, but sometimes we rearrange research stuff to try and live in the same town. So we've got to live near them a couple times, and they're just my dearest friends. And like even last year, so Cynthia was in Boise, where some of her family are, and they had lost a member of the family, and so they were doing the thing where you say, "Oh, I'll take the mirror and I'll take this and whatever." And I like that piece of art; it helps me remember that person. But then all that stuff had to get back down to Texas, where she is a professor of Hebrew Bible and archaeology at Baylor. And so her husband and I drove from Idaho. We drove all of those items down to Texas. We did an epic road trip between Christmas and New Year's, because as ministers,
a very serious road trip.
Yeah, as ministers, we had off a little bit of time after the Christmas break, and we had so much fun. And I got to see their house down there in Waco, and we hung out. It was so fun. We went to bookstores and coffee shops and drove through the campus, and I got to see the football stadium, and it was just, man, it was so much fun.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So also here's some, but wait, there's more speakers.
Oh, wow.
So, we're gonna have a good time. We're going to nerd out with our geek out. I'm excited that Juan and Stacy are coming back. We have a bunch of homebrewed regulars like Adam
Yeah.
Clark and Tom Ord. Andrew Davis is going to be there, and it's the release of his Intro to Whitehead book is going to go down at camp, and it's like superb. Dan Koch finished his doctorate, so now he's Dr. Dan, so he gets his own picture now.
Okay, nice.
So like it'd be his, I guess, 5th Theology Beer Camp, but now that he's a doctor, he gets a picture. And so shout out, Dan. You have permission, Turned Into Religion on the Mind podcast. Casey Sigmund has the one with the cool glasses, process practical theologian. Kevin, who hung out with us last week. And I had quite a few messages, Bo, that said they were worried when a third person showed up what they would do with our energy. And then
Right.
like, Kevin ate it up and went along with it.
No, that was a convergence, a conflation. That was like smaller fires finding each other and becoming a serious threat.
Yes. Sarah Lane Ritchie, my old boss, Myron Pinner, who I just hung out with in Canada, philosopher of science. He works at Trinity Western University, where I gave the lecture.
Yes,
which is I just posted on Substack.
Okay.
And I got the most beautiful text from Brian. Now I know Brian's nice, so like I always like will take a compliment with like a level of, hyperbolic nature. But
this is McLaren.
Yeah.
What do you say?
He said, Tripp, your new essay on nonviolence is the best exposition of the gospel I've read this millennium. Well done, my friend.
That is so nice.
Like, so even if you recalibrate it,
that's
like that's like even to
if you prorate it for how nice Brian is.
And it was unsolicited. This wasn't like we were talking and he decided to bring it up.
It also has a subtle dig though in it. If you didn't catch that, he clearly read something, at least one thing, better than your essay before the turn of the century.
Which is fine. I wasn't even, I was like a virgin and had never drank at that point.
Oh, my Lanta. That is
It was
hilarious.
before Y2K.
I'll bet you, I'm going to guess, what would he have read in the 1900s?
I think it would be Exclusion and Embrace, around that topic about nonviolence being the heart of the gospel and connected to the way God. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my guess.
All right. I was going to guess. That's good. I was going to guess something more in the Brueggemann.
Or like prophetic imagination.
Yeah.
Oh, that could do it. Or like I, Thou by Buber. That's one of those. It's like a banger all the way through.
Yeah.
The other people here, Leah Robinson and Christy Whaley, who do Theology on the Rocks, they're also the returning God Pod champions with the belt. And if you're in the group text thread that includes them and Josh Patterson, who they took it from, junk is already being talked. And so it could escalate. James McGrath is going to be back. Sherry Kling, it's her first time at Theology Beer Camp, but she's not just a process thinker. She works the intersection of process and Jung, and is going to be doing a workshop on like process, union, dreams work.
That is awesome. Jung is definitely my favorite person in the psychoanalytic world. I love the archetypal stuff that comes out of it, and those who are working off his thought. So I'm in. I'm attending that one. By the way, I figured out who
there on the
Brian. Bottom. I figured out who Brian must have been referring to.
Okay,
John Howard Yoder.
Ooh, the politics of Jesus.
Yep.
Okay, that's also reasonable. Hopefully there's not some like deep dark conspiracies about me that come out later to really ruin the luster, because Yoder had some. I think he had some like Me Too issues.
Oh yes, I did. I forgot about that, but I did hear about that. Something about research assistants.
Yeah, Yeah, it's more trouble if you're a Mennonite than if you're like Bart
Yeah.
Tillich. But and the last person here is Craig Boyd, and I wanted to bring him up. One, like he's awesome Catholic ethicist and stuff, but hardcore Tolkien scholars, published on Tolkien and things.
Oh.
And since Kevin works so good, I want to try to talk Craig when the semester's over to join us, and we do that episode. We can talk Tolkien the whole time on Friday, though. But you can pick what topics you want us to talk about. That way, it doesn't turn into Tripp giving 10-minute questions in the form of a sermon.
Okay. I can tell you right now, I have some questions about the Ents that I'd love to pick somebody's brain on. Bombadil's probably my favorite shibboleth in the whole thing.
Oh, he's a dillhead.
Okay. We could do a Cimmerillion thing. I'm in. I always like to ask people, why was Boromir better than Faramir? That's like probably my go-to question when this.
You like up. Boromir better than Faramir?
I'm the older brother. I'm the oldest brother.
I understand as an older brother the desire to, but Faramir is the one that recognizes the way the working class is all brought into the military-industrial complex when he reflects on the death of the Easterlings, right, with Sam and Frodo. He's the one that recognizes that as the family tasked as the steward of Gondor, it does, like, you can't get it by seizing power and using the weapons of the enemy against it. He's the one that recognizes the quest of Sam and Frodo as something that can be trusted into friendship and such, in ways that, like, the rest of the Fellowship had a hard time getting there. Definitely Boromir. I mean, the redemption of Boromir at the end is like a banger. And that's one of the scenes, but I actually like the changes in the movie where, because
that's another great topic.
You don't get as much detail on Boromir's heroic stand and engagement with Aragorn, but in the film you get more of it. That beat lands, and then the way they edit the last film, it has more kind of sending power.
I think my favorite change the movie made was the introduction of Liv Tyler.
How old were you when the movie came out?
In my 20s. I was a youth pastor.
And sounds about right. Oh, man. She's aged better than her father.
Yes. Oh, no, that would be a lot of fun. I have a preferential treatment for the oldest son. So,
well, what about the only son?
No. By the way, did you know that Joseph was married, Jesus' dad, before he met Mary? That's where Jesus' siblings come from.
Unless they're cousins.
No, this is important in the theory of the Nephilim.
Oh, I know what you're doing, Bo. I know where we're going, but
okay,
everyone, thank you for being here. Now we're going to talk about some Nephilim and conspiracies, and this is just a general warning that I think all this is crazy AF. Don't buy any of it. It is the best example of all sorts of cognitive mechanisms twisted up to distort reality in significant ways, to solve all sorts of problems.
Well,
and generate some passionately held commitments that cannot crash into the wall of reality. So I'm saying all that now.
Thank you.
That if your algorithm decides to start showing you videos that gateway you, I mean, I'm telling you, it can happen within just a few days if you click on
one click
to CRISPR, Peter Thiel and Musk and the World Trade Organization and reptile alien Nephilim babies and secret genetic remixing of different giant races into the royal families of Europe and the Epstein class. I'm just saying, you should just look at it like one of those binge watching thrillers on Netflix that was hoping to hit like Dan Brown. That's all you gotta do. And if you're not, I wouldn't watch them when you're chemically altered.
Yeah.
If you're feeling kind of tense these days, it's not going to help anything unless unless you go into it laughing. You're like, what would happen if Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber was a biblical scholar and was tasked with hooking together multiple conspiracy theories? That's
wow.
That's what
Tripp,
we're talking about.
I did not know that you were going to lay all your cards on the table at the beginning. I truly thought you would hold them close to your chest and then only at the end reveal how you felt about this whole thing. But I appreciate
I appreciate that said, I might be trying to make my buddy's point that explained it all to me with gusto, and I just didn't want anyone to think,
okay,
if I got too excited, and was encouraging you to say even crazier things, like I just need it very clear that Tripp's already given his assessment of what we're about to discuss.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the transparency right up front.
All right, that is the end of the intro and
the disclaimer.
Theology Beer Camp, theologybeer.camp. All right, Bo, say things.
All right.
Yeah.
So for those who are unfamiliar, in Genesis 6, there are these odd 4 verses that explain why the world was so evil and God had to flood it, destroy it, and start over, in a sense. So a lot of people don't know what to do with this, because it's not just that humanity was having problems internally. It's that there were some external actors who had come to the earth, these fallen angels, if you will, who thanks, Lori, who took to mating with human women. Now, there's no explanation about how these spiritual beings did this, but we'll get there. With human women to make these hybrid heroes and legends of old giants.
Yeah.
And they're called the Nephilim. And they play a role in people's both historical imagination and in contemporary global politics in a way that, if you're unfamiliar with this line of reasoning, will truly surprise you. But the seminal event, if you will, pun intended, was this this visitation by these otherworldly creatures, beings who manifested in some way and copulated with human women to produce this genetic line that was superior in so many ways, both physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Yeah.
So that's my
typo negative blood, Bo.
Oh, the blood. We're going to talk a lot about blood today.
I always think when religious people create goodies and baddies, Manichean dualistic theories, if you can attach it to biology, what could go wrong?
Isn't it amazing? Listen, so Tripp and I listened to this podcast he found. By the way, it's sad to me that we probably did more research getting ready for this podcast than 5 other podcasts combined. Well, because we know this,
we know the stuff degrees and the other thing, and spent years preparing for them, and somehow, like philosophy and religion undergrad and masters in divinity and a PhD in philosophy and religion and a postdoc in science and religion, we never got around to discussing like the obviously 3 interpretive options you have, Bo, for the Nephilim. And you want to hear what they are?
I do, but can I just say, this is why I was so looking forward to talking about this with you, is because I knew about the Nephilim before I even went to Bible college to train for ministry. And so I had this with me the whole time. And so even
You've really been holding out.
so even during, like, I have a bachelor's, right, it includes biblical studies and pastoral ministry, and then a master of theology, and then later my doctoral work in practical theology. But I've known about this the whole time. So to see it through your eyes in the 21st century context I've been looking forward to this so much.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. My typology I've made this week includes 3 different ways you can interpret the few little verses, right? And I'm going to tell you these, and you can tell me which one you were rocking.
Okay.
And other stuff about it. You can fill in details, because I listened to a few podcasts, and then YouTube showed me some stuff, and I got kind of concerned. And then I did actually look up actual Bible scholarships about the passage and the translation stuff, which is not nearly as interesting.
It's not.
But you get those 3 verses in Genesis 6, and then Numbers 13:33. The spies are going into the promised land, and the spies come back, and there's a bunch of giants in them junks. And you would say to yourself, this is one of these little Bible bits that you could just squeeze a whole conspiracy theory or 10 in. How did the giants get in the land if the giants all happened before the flood and you killed all flesh? How does that work, Bo?
How are they back?
Yeah. And why are the giants obviously in the Holy Land? Because they know God's people are going to come there. And if they kill them when they come there, the true God-man will never be born, Jesus, that will finally put the Nephilim in their place and bring about not just Armageddon and the destruction of evil, but the salvation of the world. Ooh, they have always been trying to kill Jesus, first by killing the Jews right there and by being in the promised land when they come. And then, obviously, Herod, who got Nephilim blood in him, tries to take out Jesus and Matthew. And obviously the Egyptians, they're Nephilim. They were trying to kill the Jews too. And all of it is to just keep the perfect real hybrid from coming to set junk right, called Jesus. And everyone knows this because Enoch. Okay, so here are the 3 versions that. Okay, so one is.
Oh, that wasn't one of that was. No, I thought that was one typology.
No, well, okay, that is an example of it that just was distracting, because there's that one verse in Numbers. And that's like the gateway, right? To go, oh, they didn't all die. Ooh, what do
you brought up? You brought up Dan Brown before, and
Mm-hmm.
I just have to say, one of the reasons I hated the Da Vinci Code wasn't because of anything that it implied. It was the methodology of that the Bible has these little cookies, nuggets hidden in it, and that if you can find them, unearth them, and tie them together, that the puzzle makes sense.
Yeah. Did you ever hear about the Bible Code?
Same thing.
Yeah. Well, we don't need a detour on that one, but I had a high school teacher who was really into the Bible Code, and he gave me the book, and I read it. And I didn't know better at this point, because I was just a pastor's kid. So I just figured Christians are Christians, because you'd never met really different kinds. I am halfway through the book and started explaining it to my dad when we're driving to Texas. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, how God and the Torah, and I started explaining this thing, and it predicted the assassination of Bibi Rabin. And he's just like, Tripp, do you understand how crazy that is? Right? It's illogical. And after that, he was like, you should read some Charles Sanders Peirce. philosopher and logician. And see, I could, if he hadn't have done that, if my dad hadn't provided the Persian interjection and introduced logic and abductive thesis and asked for the more parsimonious explanation and coherence across disciplines, I could have beat a trajectory in this story. But so the three of them, one is the Nephilim are like supernatural, angelic type beings, like divine beings, fallen angels. You see it in like the people in this thing will claim these little bits in Jude and Second Peter, obviously First Enoch, but Second Temple period Judaism. They had this whole supernatural, unseen realm of ancient Near East, and some of them always use the phrase "the unseen realm" as like the placeholder for the only way you can interpret all these texts together is if the unseen realm is true, and most modern Christians just don't believe in the real unseen realm, and that's why they think we're stupid. But if you see this chart with random Bible verses and conspiracy threads hooked all across it, all the way to the modern world and the reptilian leaders organizing the power, that the only reason everyone doesn't see this as obvious in the Bible is because they don't believe in the unseen realm. So then, right, that position is to go like, do you have any experience that you think legitimates something other than a reductive materialism? You give me the unseen realm, I give you some Nephilim, fools. That's how that whole argument works. The other one, this is what Augustine did. And I got to say, never have I had a typology where Augustine's like the most obviously preferable answer. But Augustine's like, look, this is nuts. You can't sit there and be like daughters, righteous, but like the daughters of man, and that's just a bunch of angels having sex. Yeah, because normally Augustine's sex worries create problems like purity culture and stuff. Here, his worries about angelic beings having sex with humans, because why would you would obviously be a problem because sex is so bad. And he's like, that can't be what happened in the story. So what the difference is, the sons of God are the righteous line of Seth. Yep. The daughters of men are the ungodly line of Cain. Now we have a perfectly natural explanation for why some humans just suck, because they are just like banging in a line of sinners, and these other ones were the more faithful side. And you just got these different trajectories, but y'all need to chill out on your Enoch, warrior, angel beings. And I'm like, finally, this is Augustine, good move. I'm glad your obsession with sex finally paid off for something more reasonable than the other option. And then if you track the Second Temple period Judaism expression into rabbinic Judaism, they see they see Elohim, the character Elohim in kind of the oral Torah, as a title referring to judges or rulers. And so the Nephilim, like baddies, bad judges and rulers, the Nephilim are like the warrior class of the oppressive kings, and they run around taking women by force. And so it is like it's fully demythologized, but doubly inscribed into something bad, right? And the renown, like the men of renown, is not based on lineage. It's that they're that violent. They're renowned for being the baddies.
Interesting.
And like this theory gets more popular as certain conspiracy theories within the church get more popular, and then they're like, we're going to blame the Jews for this. These are so the three different like trajectories are there, and like everything we're about to discuss after this, I found like you can usually put them in one of those three camps, and the way it plays out with different conspiracies. Is it a variation of this story? It's probably an extension here, or a rebellion against one. But yeah.
Oh man, so I like the demythologized version of it. I had something similar. I only had sort of two that I had thought through. One was your first one about the supernatural beings. And the other one, which was a little more demythologized, is about the explanatory powers and trying to answer a question. So when people start digging down or falling down this rabbit hole, go down the wormhole, if you will, one of the things, so for me, I break it into why did this originally develop? And then the second thing is, why is it gaining in popularity today? So those are like my two sort of brackets that I look for. So one of the things I wanted to run past you is in the original development of this concept in antiquity, one of the powers of the explanatory theory is that why did other civilizations appear to be so much more advanced, to have technologies and architecture and all sorts of stuff that other groups didn't have? And so a theory developed that it was because they were descended from this visitation that imbued them with special powers or insights or advances. So if you were to look at the Sumerians, right, Babylonians, the Tower of Babel, if you will, the pyramids of Egypt, not only was the people that would become the Hebrew people are dwelling in tents, they're still wanderers, right? They're hunter-gatherers. And then these other civilizations are so much more advanced, and their militaries are organized, and they have these warriors, and they can conquer and defeat you as a people, take you into slavery. And so the explanatory power is that they got this from somewhere else, right? And that they had a head start, that they got an injection of
it's like a technological speed up kind of thing.
Yes.
Like,
and so
that shift, not all, like the transition from bronze to Iron Age is significant, because if you're in a battle with someone that's already in the Iron Age and you're in the Bronze Age, it's very hard to have a sword fight when one of your swords breaks the other sword. When one of you can shape metal to create projectiles, all these kinds of things.
Yeah, no, it's
same with agriculture and storage. You can get a technological advance once you get certain technologies. Earlier, it's like when humans, different parts first harness fire, that like proto Homo sapiens, that's one of the differentiations among our near competitors. Like when you harness fire, you outsource a lot of the energy that your stomach used to do to a fire, and then we move a lot more energy into our frontal cortex for symbolic communication and stuff. Like there's a whole story of like when knowledge becomes in a social species, you now have social cultural inheritance, and that creates for more cooperation and more competitive power towards your peers. And like, and once you think that, look, there are actual scholars that note how this plays out in the biblical text. It's just the explanation isn't, well, you know why they were ahead in the technology race? Wow, have I told you about the Nephilim? And
so the thing that always gives me pause, and even right now I'm trying to think through how to give this caution, is it is rooted in a form of racism, right? And xenophobia. So that lingers to this day. But even in the biblical text, I mean, the two things you talked about, one in Genesis and one in Numbers, are about the inherent evil in the other. So one of the reasons God had to flood, right, and save the pure,
undefiled humans,
and some people would argue animals, Right? And we can get into the whole animal imagery.
Yeah, look, we aren't going to type in AI
Okay.
Nephilim on goat action. That's just
and the
they're called the Billy
proliferation
theme. Bah.
of snake imagery in royal houses outside of
Oh yeah, you've
the Bi-
seen that King
the
Tut
Bible.
tomb? Did
Yep.
you listen to that part? That
Yes,
guy
I
started
did.
getting King
Yes, I did.
pile eyes.
So it was, and I mean, even the dragons, like just the mention of dragons, like they were like essentially like Nephilim-like versions of the snake. Who, by the way, there's an animosity to snakes in the Genesis account because that snake was a portal or a scion through which Satan, right,
Yeah.
tried to take down
Yeah,
Jesus's
snake.
ancestors.
Yeah, but like fear of snakes is one of
Yep.
the few cross-cultural like fears that run across us as a species, regardless of like where you break into the agricultural revolution is like in different parts of the globe, and then there's migrations and things. And one of the weird elements when you look at like anthropologists are always fascinated by like snakes. Like
Yeah.
they get used all over the globe in early art. There's always fear. Most of the ancient stories all have snake elements in it.
Yep. India and China
and there's obviously the most parsimonious
Mexico.
explanation,
Yeah.
Bo, is not something about like the actual danger of snakes to the species and its survival habit.
Right.
It's actually a hangover from the Nephilim.
The hangover. That is a Nephilim hangover that's my new favorite phrase.
Okay.
So
oh, sorry.
So he says, John Augustine in the comments here says, is it that in the same line with the thought of the lineage of Ham? It is. It's a very similar formula, but it instead of it being a curse, right, placed there by God, imagine it was a visitation by bad angelic / demonic figures. Yeah. But it's the same sort of reasoning of why they
use the narrative to make judgments, like
why they are different than us and why they are bad and we are good.
Yeah, like my homeboy at the cigar lounge was like, see, all these people ask like, why is the Old Testament God so evil and the New Testament God so good? And I said, yeah, heretics ask that question. He goes, no. Well, see, the thing is that God's always good. And I'm like, oh, we agree. And he goes, and that's why God was genociding almost everyone on the planet with the flood, and then telling Israel to go genocide all these people in the promised land. That's because they aren't real humans. They're mixed blood with the Nephilim, and they got a bunch of giants from this. And I was like, yeah. And okay, did your version growing up, when you heard about this, did it start using all of those Second Temple period books like Enoch and Jubilees, Genesis Apocryphon from the Dead Sea Scrolls?
No, because we didn't believe they were inspired. I mean, because they weren't in the Bible, they weren't trustworthy. And so we didn't know. It wasn't dependent on them much at all.
So homeboy I was talking to, he uses those two references in the pastorals, like in Peter and whatever the other one is. And he's like, while Enoch and Jubilees are not in canon, that's what they meant, which it could have well meant. Like, it has nothing to do with the veracity of this. But so then I said, well, I have this book. So I go, okay, in First Enoch, though, they talk about the book of the Watchers, right? Watchers is one of these other words they like to use about. So there's 200 angels that are like under, I think it's Simazah or whatever, it's spelled weird, and Ozel, and they descend on Mount Hermon, and there in Enoch they teach forbidden arts. What are these forbidden arts? Like what you said earlier about technology: metallurgy, weaponry, sorcery, cosmetics, probably Egyptian makeup. and they father these 200 angels, father giants who consume the earth. And so you're like, this is like the Nephilim make a comeback, right? Maybe God had killed them all and Israel had killed them all, but how do you get them to come back?
Yeah.
You get a visit. You get 200 angelic hotties show up, and they're like, we're going to teach you our technology. We're going to do this. It reminds me of like, before Sauron was Sauron, he was the bringer of gifts in the Silmarillion. And he's like, we're going to bring you these good gifts. Oh, let's make some rings. This would be great. You're helping them out. But really what you're doing is you don't know it. Your imagination's getting occupied. You're now becoming an agent of Sauron. And then like what happens to the people in Numenor? They're no longer living long lives. They end up destroying the whole thing. It has to get flooded out. Now I was like, all right, this is where I got hooked, Bo. When I found out the first Enoch connections to bad readings of Tolkien, that sent Tripp down a whole nother framing. But see, then in Jubilees, it frames, that's where you get the flood described as necessary because God had to clean up the human.
Yeah.
It's an ambiguous passage, but you could read it if you think Nephilim are the problem, that God was trying to help humans out and wasn't killing humans. And then in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's this book called the Genesis Apocryphon. And there, Lamech suspects that his wife, Beta-Nosh, of conceiving Noah. This is Noah's parents. Well, he's like, what if Noah's dad was a watcher? And it's not really his kid. And then you get all this anxiety shows up in there about like angelic incursion and things. And so that text at the Dead Sea Scrolls, this isn't the rest of, we don't have that element showing up in other parts of Second Temple period Judaism after I texted a few friends that it's their job to know these things. I will just say some people send you text back if their theologian friend asks stuff like this concerned. And I said, no. I just wanted to make sure I got
doing research.
But here's a text from a mutual friend who's a biblical scholar. It said, do not associate my name with this entire conversation at all. But he said, what matters most, most of what modern people know, if you take these Second Temple period things about the Nephilim, he's like, when people start talking about it, this is where it comes from. It's not the Bible. So when Jude and Peter in the New Testament refer to angels who sinned, they take all of this stuff from like Enoch, Jubilees, these kinds of things, shove it into those verses. And he said, like, because he works at a kind of modern evangelical school, he said, this stuff shows up in my class all the time. And the argument is Jude and Peter, these passages are best interpreted if this, and then they'll ask this scholar, so you don't believe in the unseen realm? And he realized, he's like, the moment you say unseen realm, then Jude and Peter believed in it, and here's what they believe, so therefore Nephilim.
Okay.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, I get
this conspiracy got a bunch of evangelicals to defend Enoch to their Protestant Bible professor at a school that assumes everyone's an inerrantist.
I've seen the proto versions of that, so that makes total sense. Yeah, as evangelicals and apologists, charismatics, we would only quote things like Enoch or Bell and the Dragon or something that was in, one of those Catholic books, the intertestamentals, if it supported what we already believed but needed some form.
Yeah, of like the creation out of nothing passage in Second Maccabees.
Yeah,
it's like it's absolutely nowhere in the New Testament, but if we believe this passage, and then say that's what Paul meant in Romans when he talks about resurrection like creation, they both come out of nothing.
So another aspect of this, the attractiveness historically to theories like this, is that it explains why in Egypt, in Rome, right on Mount Olympus, in the Norse mythology of the Hollow, with Thor, and in all these other cultures, in India, in China, in South America, why they have pantheons. So these pantheons are Nephilim, because if you take, like, say, in Greek mythology, with Zeus, if he has intercourse with a human woman, and then this is how you get the heroes of old, right? Yeah. In Hercules and who's the guy who rolled the rock up the hill?
Syphilis?
Sisyphus. Stuff like that. So it explains why other peoples were not monotheists. They had this pantheon is Nephilim, right?
Yeah. And the crazy thing about this, though, is, and that podcast guy did it some, but homeboy at the Cigar Lounge. Now, this guy is a fundamentalist Baptist. So this is why it's crazy that he's explaining this to me. But he gets into that and he's like, yeah. And so, like, you and all of your liberal Christians, y'all just roll your eyes when people talk about Hercules and Ra and Osiris and Norse myths and stuff. And it's like you're just looking at all of humans' history and being like, y'all made stuff up. Yes. Except our story's true. This actually makes way more sense. It's that all those stories are true. It's just they're demigods, basically, from some breeding with angels and humans and dark magic and stuff angels taught people. And so then I said, is it like the Rick Jordan books? So, like, Percy Jackson. It's young adult novels. I've read all these. I'm currently reading the Kane Chronicles, which is same author, same universe. So the Percy Jackson, he's like a son of Poseidon. All of the characters and everything are in it. And the story of the West moves from, like, Greece and Rome over to America. So all the characters, mythology and stuff of Greek mythology exists. And now it's in North America as the center, right? And you interact with it, and there are all these rules around it. That whole story makes perfect sense as an unseen realm thing. And I never thought about it till there was this one bit in the Kane Chronicles, which is another coming of age story with all Egyptian gods and stuff are real, doing stuff. And the two brother and sister, get this, their main characters, their parents are both ancestors of Pharaoh, and they had a kid, and now they got more Pharaoh blood energy in them than before, and it upsets the things. And there's this one bit in it where they make a reference to the one time one of them was defeated when they had a rod battle, turning it into a snake. And they make a short allusion to Moses being the most powerful sorcerer, and he came from another tribe. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And now I think he has another one that includes Norse mythology in this, but all these mythologies are true, operating in the world. They explain, like, World War II, Ares got mad at so-and-so, like it, and I'm telling him this, and he's like, yeah. And this is what he says, Bo. And doesn't that make a lot more sense of biblical Christianity?
It's fascinating, right? So,
doesn't that make a lot more sense of biblical Christianity?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell my story, because I think this is where the deviation comes. So I'm going to tell you my history with this thing. So in my branch of evangelical charismatic Christianity, we did something called spiritual warfare. The reason, by the way, the whole reason this Nephilim thing came up is because I'm trying to redeem the best of my spirituality from the past. And so spiritual warfare came up, and that ties in with this. So one of the things you do is, when you, like, we would prayer walk around a city or an area to claim it for Christ. And we would do, through prayer, battle in the spiritual realm right? Because we believed in regional or territorial principalities. Okay. It's why some places seem so much darker, if you will, than other places. And why revival, by the way, happens in some places and in other places, it's resisted. And so when you do prayer walking, you're always concerned about these territorial or regional spirits, and you try and take authority over them in Jesus' name. So in 1991, Tripp, a book was published called The Last of the Giants by George Otis. And it was primarily an introduction for many people like me to prayer walking. And specifically, if you have a missionary heart. So like we would go literally to Bosnia was one of our places. And when we would go to Bosnia, we would join the people of light, the people of God there in prayer for that region, that place. But George Otis, in my mind, is the clearest explanation for how regional spirits work. Okay. And my favorite part of the book is when he references in Daniel, at one point in Daniel, I think it's chapter 9, the archangel Michael is delayed in responding to Daniel's prayer. This is in the Bible because he was in a tussle, I think for 21 days, if my memory serves, with this character called the Prince of Persia. Now,
like the video game?
Well, that's where so the video game gets it, from there. So the reason this is important is that historically there has never been a Prince of Persia. This is never a title you find in antiquity, in any historical documentation. There is no such thing as the Prince of Persia. Okay. And so George Otis says this was a regional principality who limited Michael's coming to answer Daniel's prayer because this was happening, in the spiritual realm, this regional principality. So George Otis goes on to talk about these regional principalities and the role, the ongoing effect that they have even in the world today. Okay, so here's where it deviates in two interesting ways for me. Number one of the things George Otis says in the book is that genocide, this is one of the things the Prince of Persia, wherever he resides at the time, genocide is one of the side effects. So you can track where he has been on the earth through the centuries by following where genocide happens, because in George Otis's theory, genocide never happens in two places on the earth at the same time.
Oh, so the Prince of Persia is like a spirit, and it rolls around.
Yep.
And it's like,
where it's given authority.
I think I got some authority over here in Germany, so we're going to do our thing.
Yep.
And then it's like, I think I'm going to go over here and do my thing.
Yep.
And does Otis know if someone, like say a political leader, is like always Persia princing, and that's part of the rise, or does the Prince of Persia, can it show up and just claim somebody? Let's say they became president or whatever. Would they be a part of the rise to that person's power and getting to? And it's like, what do I have to do to get this person in charge so we can genocide?
Okay,
because I'm Persian. Or could you just get possessed? Like, did prayer warriors keep Prince of Persia from claiming Obama and all the other previous presidents that Netanyahu tried to talk into invading Iran? And then the Prince of Persia spirit was like, oh, we finally got a soulless, vacuous, narcissistic, neo-maniacal president. So we're gonna give our elevator pitch again, and he's gonna go for it.
Yeah. So I haven't read the book since the 1990s. I don't remember how politicians factor in, but let me tell you this, because I think this is going to be really helpful for you to understand. Here's where it deviates for me. The subtitle of the book, Tripp, The Last of the Giants, the subtitle is Lifting the Veil on Islam and the End Times.
Oh, all right.
Okay. You see
Yeah.
where it just took a turn?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's why this isn't funny to me. I mean, even though we're having a good time with it, even back to its earliest days, this theory or mythology has been an explanatory, played a function of why non-Hebrew groups are both different and evil. And so one of the things about the justification for the conquest of Canaan in coming into the promised land was that they had to clear out these evil groups that had the blood, the DNA of the Nephilim in them. It's also the problem with the Egyptians, the Babylonians, right? And eventually the Romans. And if you, I mean, even this guy that we listen to, I mean, you can trace the emperors, the royal family, right, of the Romans, you can trace them back to the royals of Samaria.
Obviously.
Right. And they bragged about it. Yeah. So I know that we're having a lot of fun with this, but can I just say that it's contemporary, one of its contemporary attractions is because it justifies or allows for justification for why Arabs and people in certain regions of the world are both seemingly successful in as warriors and technology and advancements, right? It explains it away by saying, well, they had this shot in the arm from Nephilim DNA, and that's why they had the jump in civilization. But it also explains why they are so warlike, violent, and evil. So it has some really serious and dangerous consequences, as much as we're going to have fun with the theory.
Just see, this is why I wanted to say things up front, Bo. This is
I get it.
Okay, so the version you had, how did it? Okay, so like, it seems that there's like different responses to how you solve the post-flood problem.
Yeah.
Like, right. And so like some people will go, oh, the flood was localized, and they used like real biblical scholarship to be like, yeah, there was a big flood. You see it show up in these places.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would have been their whole world, but it probably isn't the whole world. So maybe there were Nephilim getting it on in another place.
Yep.
So sometimes they're like, oh no, there's a second angelic incursion.
Yep.
Or genetic persistence of Nephilim energy through Ham's line. Others, that are more demythologizing are like, it's a grammatical reoccurrence. Every time you say whenever the sons of God came down and stuff, it's just pointing at a whole nother event.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to like connect all the dots. Or you can't drown them junks. They're disembodied spirits that became demons, and they can maybe like Prince of Persia style, show up or whatever. Like did one of those, like, when you heard it, did someone go, no, this is the correct answer, Bo?
No, it was in all of the above approach. So
whichever one gets us a Nephilim.
It gets, So, and how they show up again in numbers, right? And maybe even Goliath was one of the Nephilim, the descendants of the Nephilim.
Maybe. I don't know any of them. All the ones I found on the internet love Goliath. They love that junk.
Okay.
And they're like, no wonder he's the man after God's own heart. He's killing Nephilim.
Yeah, I know. So,
have you seen the House of David TV show on Amazon Prime?
I don't watch any TV.
But this one, actually, I really enjoy it. But part of it, there's stuff that was really weird in it to me about the giants and things made way more sense this week.
Okay.
And now I'm like, oh, that's why that was weird. I just thought they wanted some Game of Thrones energy.
So back to your question about, so if there's so many ways, like the second visitation is a pretty standard one, that Noah's wife, right? Or not Noah's wife, Noah's daughter-in-laws. So he had pure sons, but they didn't marry pure women. That was another theory, right? By the way, and we should just say this, there are so many weird aspects to this. For instance, when the Nephilim, when they're born, they can't be born to a human woman without a C-section. And then because they're big, right? And then she dies. So this is one of those other alienating things of othering people's that are different than us by saying like, it's just, there's so many weird layers to it. Anyway, so there's a second visitation. That's one possibility. There's a Noah's line, second possibility. And then the third is that because they're disembodied spirits, it's just a reoccurrence, right, in subsequent generations and the persistence of the DNA. So all of that works.
So the ooh, ooh, ooh.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I can't hear me.
Okay. Oh, no. Now you're gone. You're muted now. All right. Do you want me to talk while you figure that out? Because you looked like you had something to say. No, you're still muted. Oh, no.
Oh, no, here we go. Here we go.
There you go. You're back. You're back.
All right. Okay. So the dude,
I was wondering how I was going to carry the rest of the show without you.
Oh, I thought the Prince of Persia was trying to stop us outing the process. So have you heard of the Michael Heiser guy?
I think so.
So he's the one who the guy at the cigar shop is like really into. And he did his PhD in Hebrew Bible and Semitic languages. For a long time, he worked at like the Logos Bible software, but he has.
That's why I know him.
He has the book,
yeah,
The Unseen Realm and Reversing Hermon, right? And he tries to do like the most I'm being reasonable biblical studies version of this.
I love it.
And so he's like, the B'nai Elohim are real divine beings, right? So he's like, no, he's rejecting the Sethite view of where they come from. And then he says, well, the ancient Near Eastern worldview assumes a divine council, that shows up throughout the Hebrew scriptures, but also in other texts, right? Where there is the God, Yahweh, but there's all these other ones rolling around. And
I mean, it shows up in Job, right? Because Hasatan comes before the Lord and says, hey, consider Job. It shows up a lot of places. Let us make man in our image.
Yeah. And so he's like, look, I'm an intelligent Bible scholar. I know all this stuff and things, and y'all just are denying the unseen realm, right? This is that whole unseen realm thing where he's like, once you admit it, why are you going to tell the Bible it doesn't know what it's talking about?
Right. Yes.
So then the Nephilim is an actual literal incursion, and the post-flood stuff for him, because he doesn't want to treat like Enoch and those things as canonical, but as like supportive, but secondary. Yeah. So post-flood reappearance of the Nephilim is best explained by another incursion, not surviving DNA. And he'll even say, some people in this theory, they get all worked up on the DNA stuff, and that sets up to being racist. But and he'll even have an excursus on how all of the Nephilim, except maybe Satan, could get saved. Like you could still be redeemed, right? And this kind of thing. And so then the conquest of Canaan for him was targeted spiritual warfare against the remaining Nephilim tribes, where it's like you either need to get right with the Lord, and maybe like how they respond to Jonah, or you get the Joshua treatment, right? And so and then why is it, Bo? You've always wondered, why are all these demons running around in the New Testament that aren't in the Hebrew Bible? Well, see, when you kill them giants, their spirits don't die. So demons are disembodied spirits of dead Nephilim. And that is what First Enoch is talking about.
Okay.
Explains that. And he's like, the only reason you can trust First Enoch, because you can see that's exactly how Jesus saw the world and how the unseen realm works in Jesus' ministry. And where did all these demons come from? Well, they used to be giants and Nephilim running around, hybrid style.
Okay.
But now they got killed off. So now you got more demons that are spirits running around. And this is where he'll be like, oh, well, the gods of the nations are like lesser divine beings that, take on jobs after Babel and stuff. But he's, and this is my buddy was sitting there. He's like, no, if you've looked at some of this stuff on the internet, man, like if you just trust the Bible, you're not going to be like the Nephilim or connected to the Illuminati and Freemasons. Like you aren't going to hook it to like royal bloodlines or the New World Order and stuff. That's conspiracy.
Oh, okay.
He's got standards on that.
Interesting.
Now, does he hook it to other conspiracy theories later in our conversation that Michael Heiser didn't cut off? Yes. But his whole thing is you like, oh, also it's not aliens. He also was really insistent there's no aliens involved. But for him, the supernatural's real and biblical. But like the moment you get that, then a true biblical scholar that takes it seriously, you'll basically agree with him and get that big Nephilim energy. And I'm like, obviously.
Yeah. You don't need aliens. You just need Nephilim, right? Because it's the same thing. I mean, if you want to know like where the pyramids, right, or the technology for the Great Wall or the Tower of Babel, right, or some of the things that were going on in North America, like how were they so advanced when the pure people, the Hebrew people, the people of God, were still dwelling in tents? And how did they take them captive? And how did they conquer them? And the answer is not aliens. They had help from the unseen realm. Yeah.
Now that dude I sent you that podcast from, Gary Wayne, who's like he's all over the Reddit thread about this stuff. People love this dude. The Genesis 6 conspiracy. So at least he's aware that he's a conspiracy theorist, right? Because that's what he calls this thing. But he's like, Heiser, he gets it part right, but he doesn't understand. The Nephilim bloodlines survive in Ham and Canaan. And this explains all the mystery religions like Egypt and Babylon. And you know how they had their powers, but they weren't as good as like Moses or like it's because they're preserving the knowledge the Watchers and Enoch gave, metallurgy, magic, and junk like that. And he has like this huge theory where this secret knowledge, goes from like Kabbalah to the Templars to Freemasonry and the Illuminati. There's elite and royal bloodlines that carry residual Nephilim genetics. And of course he has like a really cool chart that has all 13 Nephilim bloodlines. That, but see,
that's fantastic. I love wall charts.
And so, but you want to know what explains all the UFO and alien stuff, Bo?
Okay.
This is Watcher deception repackaged for the disclosure event. Like, we're being set up for the disclosure, right, of aliens and stuff. But this is actually the long play of the Watchers is to use in a secular modern technological age UFO energy to the revelation of the Watchers. And they're going to take over using what? Obviously transhumanism, genetic editing, and AI, because the Watchers are teaching these people with Nephilim residuals new technologies, just like they did back in the day to pervert humanity and come to totalitarian power. And so in all likelihood, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all the AI, all the people behind Donald Trump when he got inaugurated, you thought this is the best example of the demonic challenge of our age, namely because they're billionaires and are exploiting the planet and extracting wealth from the working poor across the globe. No, they are watchers, and they're part of this conspiracy. And we're going to get soon, Bo, to the Antichrist will be revealed, who will be a what? Nephilim hybrid.
Oh, shit. You brought it full circle.
Genesis 6, that thing, it isn't a bridge passage of some ancient thing. No. It's the master key that unlocks every conspiracy from Babel to Davos. And recently updated, the Epstein class. Come on.
Yes.
This is what I'm talking about. If you're going to go hard for a conspiracy theory, make all the baddies, if you're just a Christian socialist, work for the watchers. See, this is why I'd like Michael Heiser's way too reasonable version. It's not even that interesting. What if all the people, just a normal Christian is concerned about the concentration of wealth being the one either or Jesus gives? Could you make all those baddies secretly part of not just a transnational billionaire class, but you're like, no, the Epstein class is the crescendo of the slow watcher infiltration. And I was like,
fascinating.
This is why I was like, I could see young Tripp gets really into this. I'm like, do I really want to have to read Marx and get into economic theory and look at how the World Trade Organization exploits blah, blah? No, you just blame the freaking watchers. And this is how you know Peter Thiel and all those people are part of it. Because who is it that they want to call the Antichrist? Greta Thunberg. Like, they're like, oh, people that want to care for the planet and help the poor and not and expand democracy. These people are sus. They're probably Antichrist. You should trust techno billionaires who are purchasing nation state leaders, extending technology that they learn from watchers. Like, that's who.
So interesting. So listen,
you got to admit that's crazy, right? But like the amount of energy that went into that, and I'm saying like straight up, straight face explaining it to me,
and the amount of different news stories that form the nodes on the web is impressive. Let me just say, last week I listened to a thing about why there are so many alien sightings this year and orbs, because there's like a record amount.
A lot of orb sightings.
Yeah.
I know. So watchers prefer round, just so you know, round shapes.
Well, the show I listened to, it said, it's because, this is a conspiracy theory, non-spiritual. It's because we are going to have an alien encounter next year. So it's funny, in spiritual realms, we think, it's the end times, where this is the unveiling of the Antichrist. In non-spiritual realms, it's the aliens, it's orbs, and we're going to have an alien encounter, right? But it is interesting to me that people can tell there's an acceleration and a franticness to life right now, to global news. And in different ways, they're trying to say, we're about to break through into something else. It happens in AI circles too, that people say we refuse to predict where we'll be a year from now. So
no, but this is what you're saying is really important. Hans Blumenberg, he's a psychological scientist, but he's written significant academic stuff on the function of conspiracy theories. And I found this article where he talked about the Nephilim, and he's Nephilim narrative exemplifies how myth reduces our cognitive load. So in a time of global crises, pandemics, technological acceleration, institutional collapse, those things, they're so complex for most people to hold in mind as impersonal systemic phenomena. Well, the Nephilim myth offers an elegant solution personify the evil as a bloodline, a cabal, a demonic lineage, or whatever, and suddenly history has a protagonist, a villain, a plot. And so the myth, in times of social upheaval, he shows how myths intensify, like conspiracy style myths. It expanded in Second Temple period Judaism and the Hellenization crisis of Jewish life then, and resurges during the crisis we're facing in late modernity. And but he's showing how like there's a kind of pattern that myths of hybrid evil are social stress indicators. And so like when he's like looking at like conspiracy theories blowing up, it is one way he argues that you can track what is the existential social crisis going on at the populace, is that when those grow, it's like hijacking the cognitive mechanisms of kind of teleological storytelling, and reducing the complexity, because we're now flooded with more knowledge and we can make sense of awareness of more challenges and stuff like that. Well, how do you make sense of it without being overwhelmed?
Wow.
And I was like, that makes sense. I'm probably not going to bring that up at the cigar lounge and be like, have you considered? But yeah.
No, that is all right. I will look that up, because that is so helpful, because between AI, aliens, and Nephilim, and people are clearly searching for something with explanatory unifying power as far as a narrative goes, for why things A seem so out of hand, and B, why there seems to be an increase in evil, right? And so that'll be very interesting.
So I made a list of things that just philosophy of religion, science, thinking about it, that are interesting to me.
Oh no!
But
my gosh!
Because I spent too much time on this, and then I was like, what good could knowing any of this ever play? And one of them is, I actually think it does a really good job of demonstrating something our buddy Paul Ricoeur talked about the surplus of meaning that exists in a text. So like the 4 ambiguous verses of Genesis 6:1-4 have generated 2,500 years of commentary. And so it's like the perfect example of how textual opacity, and it's not a bug in a religious tradition, it's actually the engine. And you can see the kind of reception theory going through, and a text meaning's never fixed at its origin, but continually reconstituted through ongoing interpretive communities that receive it. And we would normally play with those ideas in Paul Ricoeur and kind of talk about the kind of beautiful development of the faith over time and different challenges and contexts. But here's like a whole nother way to look at it. And you could demonstrate all the mechanisms, right, in something everyone would be disagreeing with in a room, at least performingly disagreeing with in an academic space. But then it shows like this is something that's very human. So now how do you assess between all the kind of the once there's this kind of hermeneutical energy with the spaciousness, then it moves out. And the other thing on it that struck me is the Nephilim exemplify a kind of strategy for explaining evil in the world. So like, instead of thinking it has to do with agency of individuals and collectives, it's actually through kind of boundary violations, where evil enters the world here, not because humans chose poorly, but because the categories were transgressed, right? And so that ends up inscribing, like you said earlier, a kind of Manichean assessment of different humans. So as opposed to, say, original sin being a predicament of just humanity writ large.
Right.
Now the problem are them, and they are our problem, and they are the source of evil. And the problem is like an ontological hybridity with the bad. And all of a sudden, then what does sanctification or any of that look like? It's going to be violence towards the other on behalf of the good. And every group of people does this, but like it becomes another example of like these ongoing problems in communities, narratives, storytelling.
So an hour and a half ago, I mentioned that I had the explanation for the war in Iran, right? Why we attacked Iran.
Good. Finally.
Well, here's the thing. All that stuff you've been saying, which is really insightful and helpful, but imagine going back and listening to Pete Hegseth's, not the part where he quoted Pulp Fiction, but his speech about the Holy War and how we're holy warriors. Listen to it through this Nephilim lens, right? You can start to see why people would be receptive or supportive that this is a holy war, for we are warriors of light, they are warriors of darkness. And when you factor in this DNA sort of faux science, then you have, right, it starts to make sense. Like there's a principality and a power there, and it goes back to the Garden of Eden, right? And there's so many layers that even if you don't subscribe to the entire theory of the Nephilim, there's enough of it present that you say, oh yeah, that sounds valid. It sounds reasonable. There's something about it that resonates with me.
I would think of it as kind of like the Manichean temptation, right? And it's one example, right? The Nephilim narrative, especially the more conspiratorial forms, exemplify the kind of seductive pull dualistic moral frameworks can have. Because once the opponents get reframed as hybrid elites or satanic bloodlines or these kinds of things, like you Hegseth's great example.
Defiled DNA.
Yeah. Then political disagreement, all of a sudden, what is it really? Cosmic war. And compromise becomes what? Collaboration with evil. And the other side of it, though, is
you're right.
You can't falsify it. Like once you've given into the Manichean temptation, any tension or problematizing or whatever, you're already inscripted in this giant judgment, that you're betraying God, the truth, life, or whatever the goodies are, if you make space for anything other than it, right? Like, you're like, to acknowledge anything beyond that dualistic framework, you're like Judas, and who, by the way, Nephilim.
Hey, two quick questions. Did you catch how many chapters there were in Gary's book?
I mean, I heard him mention like 90 something at some
98
point.
98 chapters. So the only reason I bring that up is this theory has such explanatory powers that there are like literally hundreds of implications and applications for everything from the Masons and secret societies to the royal families of Europe to the snake pyramids down in Central America. Like, it has so many tentacles that grab onto, right? I mean, you're talking about splicing genes. We're talking about orbs. I mean, it is unbelievable how extensive the tentacles are.
Dude, okay. So, yes. And here's the thing I thought of after talking to someone. Bo, I
must have had a weird week, man.
Dude, you have no idea. But this is Tripp as a philosopher of religion thing, especially thinking about like how meaning making functions, and we don't have to go into the whole thing. But one way of reading the Nephilim revival, if you say, like, I'm a philosopher, sociologist of religion, is to think about the trajectory of post-Christendom forms of re-enchantment. So as institutional religion recedes, we've noticed, like, people don't really become secular in the way we imagine it. They end up migrating, and they end up seeking what humans have sought, and religious traditions have learned a lot better ways than others and over time of negotiating a tradition and its evolution and boundary making and all that. But if you aren't in that context and you're seeking a kind of comprehensive explanatory framework elsewhere, then conspiracy theories, the esoteric traditions, pop supernaturalism, and these kinds of things have like they are like functional equivalents of religion, because they offer cosmology, theodicy, eschatology, moral clarity, and community. And so the Nephilim and its growth in the church, especially evangelicals, the same time they're responding to like Donald Trump and all that kind of stuff, it's a great example of this kind of the study of religious mutation post culture dominant, there being a culture dominant expression, which is why figures as different as like Michael Heiser or, Zachariah Stitchin. Oh, he's like the pseudo archaeologist with the alien version, or all these people. They can take those same 4 verses, and the text is like a watering hole for competing ways of re-enchanting it with like the legacy of a religious tradition, but a whole new way of putting it together. It's like the more fun version of Jordan Peterson. Like, he's doing something similar, right? Like where he's like, I'm going to explain human psychology and how to be a man using all these myths, and then I'm going to use the Bible ones, and you're going to enjoy it because you know the Bible stuff, but then it's not traditionally religious, and here's a big theory, and then later it turns into you just eat steak and trans people are bad, right? But but I think it reveals something about modernity itself. The disenchantment thesis is overstated. The sacred didn't disappear, it migrated and decentralized, and human beings may not know what to do well when we don't do it in a diverse community, habits of tradition and boundaries, ongoing questions and orientations towards justice, flourishing, and for the whole, right? Like, what is the re-enchantment in narratives that does not internalize the axial turn within all world religions of the turn towards the other as the site of care. Anyway, I was thinking about that because the guy I talked to, and then other people that have mentioned it, which is why when you brought it up, I was fascinated about this, see it showing up within like more traditionally evangelical spaces.
Yeah.
And then they feel like they've reached gnosis, and their pastor's like, this is crazy. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, but that's because you don't know that Peter was referencing Enoch, and therefore,
right,
I can now reduce all the complexity and tragedies of our world into this story that generates a Manichean temptation and legitimates violence and etc.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, it does justify it. Like, I hear my more conservative friends and family asking questions around the issue, like why we're always at war in the Middle East, and we can never, why you Muslims don't convert, and questions like that. And so you can see the explanatory power of something like this to them. Well, it's because of this other thing. Like, they're not like us. They have this, right, influence at the cellular level, right, at the molecular, at the in the genome. And so it's you can see why it's so powerful. 2 quick things, because I know we're rounding the corner towards the home stretch. I just want to say, people have been putting funny things in the chat, but one of the ones I just came up with is, what do you think of this phrase, Tripp? Exotentacles, like existential tentacles. Existentacles. What do you think? Hey, and I just want to say, because I know we're going to give closing thoughts here, can I just tell you what I get to do at the top of the hour, which is so freaking awesome? Tripp, the last couple months in my time here, I've been here 2.5 years, going on 3 years. You know, when they say it takes a while to, like, when you get to a new place, to like increase your familial networks and your relational web and everything. And it's taken me a little longer here than anywhere else I've been, but we're rounding the corner, because I use an empowerment model where I recruit people who are passionate about something, and then I make sure we're on the same page, and then I sort of just release them. Tripp, some of the most amazing things have been happening in the last month, and it makes me so happy. So at the top of the hour, we're actually getting a donation for our pantry of one of the fanciest fridges I've ever seen. It's a glass front. So a business, a corporation in our area has bought it for us and is giving it to us so that when people are in our pantry, they can see what produce is available through the door and don't have to open the fridge to see what's there. It's like
that's cool.
I think it's like $8,000, and they bought it for us and they're giving it to us, which is incredible. I've had over 30 bikes be donated. None of them have come through me. I mean, I've picked up some on Facebook Marketplace, but other people are going and getting bikes and bringing them here. And then up in the new building that we're starting up north, the old building that I got, and we're turning into a community center, people are volunteering their time and resources to, whether it's painting the exterior of the building, using their hog, whatever that brush hog is, to knock down the weeds, shelving. The credit union is going to give us some shelving. People are going to help us reconfigure. There's an odd bathroom set up there, and we're going to create several family bathrooms out of what used to be just two sort of oddly shaped bathrooms. And they're going to do the work of reframing the wall and moving the doorways. And it's all happening for free. People are just donating their time and treasure. I feel like I am just in a rich vein of goodness that we have put out in the world, that we're open to partnering with good. And the response that's coming our way is just incredible.
All right. That's really exciting.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what's funny is the only thing I had to add is we haven't talked about the 33rd parallel.
There we go. Let's do it.
And just because this, I think, might be the craziest bit that I discovered.
Okay.
Have you heard about this? Is this part of your version? Did y'all have the Mount Hermon 33rd parallel bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Eliade, the theorist of religion, talks about like axis mundi thesis, where, you know, you have these like sacred spaces or whatnot.
Okay.
Well, Mount Hermon, 33rd parallel, like, you know, it's called the Gate of the North. The Nephilim tradition shows here is like this whole bit about how sacred geography basically just keeps showing up. So places accumulate mythic charges or energy or whatnot across millennia. And so the kind of conspiratorial stuff all around the Nephilim charges it. And what do you think is at the 33rd parallel? A UN base. And did you know this UN base is evidence of the elite guarding the portal, the Nephilim portal?
Oh,
I didn't know that, but it is. And there's a bunch of other stuff about it, but like it, like, just like as someone that when you teach intro to the study of religion, Eliade, and that's like sacred space, sacred time bit, It's like a theory, and anthropologically, you see it across things. But now the 33rd parallel ends up hooking all these different sacred spaces along it. But the north gate on the 33rd parallel, where you get the gateway, right, where if you need some Nephilim to pop back, there's this gate, and the UN has it.
Wow.
Yeah.
No. Now listen, I'm not kidding when I say this. Do you know about the 1040 window? Do you know about this?
Is this like a witnessing thing?
Sort of, but it gets weaponized.
Okay.
So the 1040 window is so I'm going to read, this is on Google. A region stretching from North Africa across the Middle East to Asia, encompassing a majority of the world's Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists. It's estimated that a significant majority, often cited at 90% of the world's Muslim population, resides within this resistant belt, particularly in Western and Central areas. So that comes from the Joshua Project. So the reason it's a witness thing is because 90% of the world's Muslims and Christians live on this parallel around the world. It is the dividing line between us and them. And so it is a missionary target, but right there, the Joshua Project called it a resistant belt. But think about the name, the Joshua Project. Joshua is the book in the Bible with the Canaanite conquest. Right?
Ooh.
So there's a lot going on with these parallels, and it is fascinating how, whether it's the Prince of Persia or whether it's these territorial spirits. So you keep saying 2 places in the Bible, but I just want to say there's 3 others you haven't named yet.
Okay,
because I talked about Daniel. Jesus references that at the end times it will be like in the days of Noah. And Noah is the flood. Yeah. And the flood is the Nephilim. Okay. And then Paul,
we need that Glenn Beck meme with the chalkboard.
Yes, the chalkboard. And then Paul references the principalities and powers. We don't war against flesh and blood, but against these principalities and powers, right? And then there's a spot in the book of Revelation when it is, I think it's chapter 13, where you have this character, the Mahdi is what I think the Muslim name for this character is. And in the Bible, he's bad. In the Quran, he's good. And this whole dragon imagery from the East. Anyway, if you're into this sort of Nephilim conspiracy, it's not just Numbers and Genesis 6 where this shows up. It peaks up in other random places. But I think this 33rd parallel is like the kind of thing they would love.
Oh, no, dude. This. Okay. I'm going to say up front, here was Tripp's response when I was explaining this. I said, the 33rd parallel goes around the entire globe, so that's like 15,000 miles. Touches 4 continents, and was an ideal inhabitation space when humans started settling cities. So, like, there's a lot of other, let's say, I don't know, causal factors, other big Nephilim energy that might have done it. And his response was, he said, we'll explain this. Mount Hermon, which is like where Israel, Lebanon, and Syria have, border. But what else was at Mount Hermon? The Baalbek. I had to look this one up. The megalithic temple complex containing the largest cut stones on earth. He's like, have you also the ancient Phoenician city of Byblos, the birthplace of the alphabet, which in Greek is Bible. Babylon, like Baghdad. Damascus, the Tigris Euphrates River crosses right there where the Garden of Eden was.
Yeah, okay.
The White Pyramid in China. How do you explain that?
Is that right?
Yeah, Casa Grande ruins in Arizona, which is a ceremonial site for the Native American tribe there. In Casablanca, Morocco, it has this large square hexagonal pyramid construction.
Oh,
Obviously, the most obvious answer for that is
Nephilim.
Watcher's helping out. Phoenix, Arizona. Large amounts of mass UFO sightings there. Dallas, Texas, the assassination of JFK. Los Angeles, in Venice Beach. He's like, that's where all this new age stuff starts emerging, and people are working with energy vortexes. It's really
and crystal
Watcher magic.
Huh?
Are you surprised the 33rd parallel goes through Atlanta, Georgia, where for some reason we put the center of the CDC.
I don't know what that means.
The Center for Disease and Control.
No, but I don't know what that has to do with the 33rd. Oh, because of the Watchers.
Yeah, the Watchers on the 33rd. The CDC, COVID, lab leak, conspiracy. Come on. The original site of the Scottish Rites and Masonry were first practiced in Charleston, 33rd parallel. Are you surprised that the Trinity site for the test of the nuclear bomb was on the 33rd parallel? Or the White Sands Missile Range? Or that Nagasaki itself is on the 33rd parallel? Or that Roswell, New Mexico is? Come on.
Are you shitting me?
JFK and RFK both killed on the 33rd parallel. I'm just saying.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Somebody wants to know if Disney is on the 33rd parallel.
It should be. I don't know. I'm just telling you that if he had all of these on recall, I'm like, hold on, let me get a Post-it. But he explains this whole thing to me, and I said, just so you clarify, 33rd parallel, that's like 1,500 miles around the Earth in one of the most inhabitable zones prior to temperature control and electricity and harnessing fossil fuels. So like, what in the world's going on? Psychologists would say this is like harnessing our pattern finding habit and our selective biases. But
by the way, this character, Get Behind Me, Jesus, has been hilarious in the last couple of minutes. Just being snarky, telling us to do our own research. But there was one before that really caught my attention, and I don't remember what it was. I can't. My chat's not. Here, I can scroll now. Okay.
Man, I haven't heard the 1040 window or the Joshua Project in a long time. Turns out my evangelical experience took me deep into the weeds.
But we didn't know. We didn't know, right? We're just following Alice down the rabbit hole.
I'm just asking questions. Just asking questions.
Joe Rogan. I love it. Hey, I got to go receive this new fridge.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's all I really know about this.
Oh, and, man. That was wild.
I'm going to hope that my algorithmic interest in the last few days dissipates, because sometimes it's so funny that I can't not watch, but I don't really want to give any time to it after this episode.
Right.
But I have to admit, this is way too much fun. And I just hope that, those of you that felt really compelled and aren't sure why Bo and I aren't really sucked in by this, then if you're ever in Greensboro and want to come hang out at the cigar lounge, I can tell you, introduce you to my research assistant. And
at some point, I'm just going to have to fly across the country just to go to this legendary cigar lounge with you.
It's a hoot. It's a hoot.
Wow.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to know. They wouldn't want to know. We'd have to like pregame. They don't teach this stuff in seminary.
No.
See, John, I didn't talk about it in our class. Clearly, I need to do a version of the theology and culture class that's all conspiracy theories. You know how much fun that would be?
That would be. Especially, by the way, my favorite part of today was when you talked about philosophy of religion and the role of conspiracies when there's cultural upheaval. That was my favorite part of today.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. That was my attempt to redeem having spent too much time doing this.
You did well.
Alrighty.
Ben's gonna listen to this again after taking his gummies.
Yeah, like those little gummy vitamins. They're really get your mind working. And yeah. Well, anyway, thank you all for hanging out. No idea what we'll do next week, but I promise it won't be. It turns out the cigar lounge is but I promise it will be not a conspiracy theory. And feel free, those of you, especially those in the chat, you should message us, send a message. Happy to go with topics y'all are interested in, because I wouldn't have picked this till a couple of you said you encouraged it. So
watch the
Bo,
watchers.
You gotta give a benediction, Bo.
All right. Take your vitamin gummies. Keep an eye on the watchers, and I'll see you in Valhalla, brother.